Hey everybody, this is Tony and I'm here today with a special guest, none other than comedian Miss Erin Jackson. How you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. Of course, Erin, you are a comedian, like I said, and been doing comedy for a long time. But now you're, of course, on Tiffany Haddish Presents They Ready on Netflix. Um, this has really been a joy and a treat. Of course, she did season one with some other comics.
Mhm.
This season has definitely been one for me because, seeing faces like Dean Edwards and Tony Woods and Barbara Carlisle, and Kimberly as well, along with you. It's really just a joy to see some of these people because, a lot of these people are, old school. You're like, okay, wow. But what has the reception been like for you? What has the response been?
It's been great. I've been doing stand up 17 years, so it's
Hmm.
nice to finally, you know, um, just get a much larger exposure. I've had messages from people all over the globe, which has been really dope.
Yeah.
I'm here from Brazil. I'm in Israel, whatever. Like, it's been really really cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm so grateful.
Absolutely, absolutely. You like you said, you started out 17 years ago. Do you think there was anything somebody could have told you that would have helped you ride this ride a little smoothly up till now?
Ride stand up, just in general, you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh man. I mean, because there's so many parts of what it changed about my life that
Right.
I'm yeah, there's a lot of things people probably could have told me, you know. Um, but I loved it. So I kind of stuck through all the hard stuff. I mean, most of the difficulty is financial, right? Like
Yeah,
when you're
yeah.
just out there trying to, book gigs and you don't have anybody doing that for you, or just trying to figure out how to make ends meet. That
Mm-hmm.
was the only time really when I mean, it was a lot of time, but I would say like those are the only things that gave me pause. Like not loving comedy. I never didn't love it. I never, I always had confidence that I was funny and getting funnier.
Right.
But it was just like, if I don't have enough money to pay these bills, I'm gonna have to get a job. You know what I mean? But thank goodness I never had to do that. So
Yeah, yeah. I enjoyed the conversation that you guys had on the last part of the series. But I always tell people, in general, because, I know a lot of comedians and everything. And even before I knew them, I like comedy in general.
mhm.
But I always say personally that I believe that comedy is the hardest art form there is that I can think of personally. I mean, if you sing, it's a lot of work. Don't get me wrong, but you can put out a single. Somebody can get used to you. They can get warmed up. They can come to a show. You're like, okay, cool. But comedy, you literally have to stand up and then have everybody look at you and have to command a room. You have to, get people's attention. And then if that first joke isn't something that they like, it's like, oh, I don't know if
It's
she's that
true.
funny.
It's true. I mean, I think the other things are those, other forms of entertainment are difficult as well, but that's because it's not what I do, right?
Right.
Um, but I think, the one thing about comedy is I don't think people understand, or a lot of people don't understand, like how long it takes to develop a material, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, I heard you do that before. I'm like, I know, but I'm just not getting it right. But you put out a special now, nobody wants to hear those jokes
That's
anymore.
right.
And you're like, oh, it's the pandemic. I better get to writing. I don't have nothing to write about, but I better start writing. So when it's over, I have something new to say. But yeah, like, because the singer can sing the same song. That's the one thing I always say. Like
Yeah.
a musician can play the same song, the singer could sing the same song, and people are like, "Yeah, play my song."
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's trying to hear a joke that they heard. You know what I mean? They're like, "All right, it lost the magic." So,
Yeah, exactly. Like right now, you can, for instance, SWV can sing "Weak" right now, and everybody like
mm-hmm.
fall in love and fall out, and so
Yep.
you're like, oh yeah, that takes me back. But you come and tell the same joke that you told two times already, and it's like, oh, she ain't got nothing new. What's next?
Mm-hmm. They're like, and don't have done it on TV somewhere. It's like, oh,
Yeah,
forget it. So,
it's easier for you if you do it in clubs because of course people probably won't see that. But
right,
I mean,
right.
unless
Well,
they
that's how
record
you
on the
have to
phone.
practice it. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah. But I'm like, you have to give people the opportunity to really shine. I don't think I could just stand up in front of a room and be able to deliver just like that at the drop of a dime. So I give a lot of respect to you guys, honestly.
thank you.
Yeah, yeah. So what is your process like for creating though? When you're writing jokes, what do you take from, or is there a special kind of thing that you do?
What is my process? I feel like if I have a process, it's really just being out there living life. Like most of my material points inwards, meaning
Okay.
it's something that happens to me, a story from my life or a friend or something like that. I think that's the way to make it feel real and
Mm-hmm.
original and unique to you. But the challenge is when fewer things are happening in your life, right? Like if you
Right.
write like that, it's like, okay, I'm sitting on my sofa every day eating Cheez-Its. That's not a joke that I could keep, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
during the pandemic, it's a little bit tougher. I'm not disciplined in like one of those writers who could just like sit down and write every day about the news or something like that.
Yeah.
So for me, it's really just things that happen in my life as an impetus. I think about what's funny about that and I try to fill in gaps. So
Mm-hmm.
like if I am writing a set, like for They Ready, and I'm like, all right, these are the jokes that I have that I haven't told on TV. How do I bridge the gap to make that feel like a story? So it's not jumping around. It's like, oh, I
Right,
probably
right.
need another joke about that or another joke about that. And then I can write more pointedly. But in general, it's just letting life happen,
Okay. That makes
watching
sense though.
people. I watch everything.
Oh man, but your set was hilarious. I have to tell you though.
Thank you.
Just sitting up there listening to some of the stories that you told, I really appreciated that because you have the ability to do storytelling, which sometimes some comics don't do. They just tell a joke and it's like, okay, the next joke has nothing to do with the next one,
Mhm.
you know. So I did appreciate that. But your joke about the non-colored people bringing their animals in different places, that was hilarious. And I'm just like, I died because sometimes that is true. You do see people just bring their dogs or their cats or
Huge
it's all kind of
dogs.
stuff.
We're not even talking about the dogs that fit in your purse.
Right.
I'm like, what are you doing with that giant animal in DSW? Like, it's ridiculous.
Oh my God.
But
Like,
yeah,
man, come on now. Don't you see that this is a story?
it's like they're daring people, and it's all kinds of people, but mostly one kind of people.
Yeah, yeah.
But I was like, you're daring somebody to say something to you, and I'm annoyed that nobody does.
Oh man, I can't. But that was hilarious because most of the time we laugh at stuff because it's true experiences, or we either been
Mhm.
through some or seen it or something like that. So that's why I think yours was so funny. Of course, Barbara, I know Barbara, so of course her stuff was funny to me because
Mhm.
she just kills. But how was it? What filming the actual special? How long did you guys take to film?
Oh, we filmed just on 2 nights, 2 shows. Like one show on a Friday and one show on a Saturday. Out in Long Beach, out near LA, and yeah, I mean it was a long trip, but not a lot. It was a lot packed into a couple of days because we had to go out there in quarantine before we could get to set and get tested a
Mm.
bunch of times and all that stuff. So we were out there for a while, but yeah, we did it all in 2 nights.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I'm glad that Tiffany, like I said, provided this opportunity to bring some of you guys and show your faces. I have seen your comedy before, but it's like seeing your face and I'm like, okay, I knew who that is, but I might not know your name all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It was that kind of thing. Do you think you dealt with that a lot though before now?
Not people not knowing like who I was for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's the point of, well, not that's not true because people know Tony Woods and Dean and all those people, but like, but yeah, but then that's the beauty of what Tiffany did. I shouldn't say the point. Um, yeah, I think there are a lot of comics out there who are working hard, who are funny, who
Yeah.
other comedians really know, or
Mm-hmm.
like people who are like super duper comedy fans. But if you're not plugged in, definitely not household names. Like I was definitely not gonna, I'm not a household name now. I wasn't a household name before. But definitely gaining more exposure,
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I'm used to it.
Yeah, I'm,
I'm
I'm
used to it for
sure.
sure.
After 17 years, I don't think there's probably anything that you haven't went through or saw that you just like, okay, it's already been done before.
Mm-hmm.
But as a woman, though, like you talked about, it's sometimes tougher for you all, and sometimes people announce you as a woman comic or a female instead of just saying a comic. I'm sure that kind of stuff bothers you, especially if you're on an all male, cast, and you're the next thing, and they say, "Hey, we got a female comic coming up," and it almost sets a tone in the room, honestly.
Yeah, it definitely does.
Because people are like, "Oh, female, okay, well, let me change my seating. Let me, change my thinking."
And when people do that, they make it like, even if people wouldn't have thought anything's different in seeing a woman, now you've put it in their head that there's something different happening.
Right.
Whereas it's like, no, they were probably fine, but we're all just comedians. And that's like my goal for this industry always. Like, just like people don't want to be considered a Black something or something, not all the time. You know what I mean? Like, I have no problem saying I'm Black, but like, I don't want to be defined by being a woman comic. I'm just a comedian, just like all those other people. So yeah, I mean, but that's the least of the things, you know what I mean? Like, that's always something you can address on stage or not address when you get on stage. I think the tougher things for women comedians are, not getting as many opportunities, not being fairly paid a lot of times. Not and just the same things that kind of in any industry would affect any minority, meaning being a woman, being Black, being, whatever, being older, I'm 42, really? It's not like I'm 42.
You could have fooled me.
Whatever. Thank you. But people are always looking for younger, this and that. And I've also never had a problem telling people how old I am. And I've had people be like, "Can you stop doing that?" And I'm like, no, because I really think that, especially in comedy, like the things that you talk about are informed by your life experiences, right? Like, me being 42 and saying the things that I'm saying is different than if I were, you know what I mean? If I was 24, like, oh, I got to find me somebody, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, you're 24, you have plenty of time, you know what I mean? But that kind of, so, so I just think, just to be honest about everything, I think it's, comedy for me is about honesty. And okay. Sorry, I tend to babble. You gotta stop me.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Look, listen, I love, I intend to ask questions to get different answers, but I love hearing this kind of stuff because it's important for people to hear it. The discussions being had about, what's happening in the industry or your specific industry, you know what I'm saying? Because you have people that speak out, but it's not all the time. And so it's almost foreign when it happens. And it's like, oh, is this really happening or is it that person,
Right.
So I appreciate when you guys tell these kind of stories and the good and the bad, because it's not always bad. It's not always good. Of course, we have ups and downs, but I like people to hear both sides to get a well-rounded perspective of what comedy is, who you are, that kind of stuff. So yeah, you're not.
So are you a performer at all? I don't know your background. No. Like, I know you interview a lot of celebrities. No,
not yet. Okay. No, I can't do comedy. I mean, I tell jokes at home. That's about it. A lot of people say, "Oh, you should do comedy," but I'm like, no, it doesn't come to me like it comes to other people. Like, I have to just see something and say something at the time. I can't just like go home and like write down the whole thing. Like, that's not my whole style. But no, not yet. So we'll see what happens. But do you happen to remember the first time that you bombed on stage?
Probably the first time I was on stage. I mean, I remember a lot of times I bombed. I remember some really bad, the first time is not as memorable as like the worst time, right?
Right.
Like
right.
The first time you're like, oh, I'm new, and in the beginning when you're bombing, it doesn't really matter because you're like, I'm enjoying this so much, I want to keep doing it. So you might not be good, but you're not even aware. You're just like, oh, this feels great. Because the first time I did comedy was in the sushi bar, like right next to the place where they chopping the sushi. They just put a mic next to the cabinet. Yeah. But I got booed on the National Mall. I was doing a show on the National Mall in DC at the Black family reunion. I was like, my family is booing me. I got booed by the Washington Monument. So that was bad. I got booed at some colleges. I mean, I remember I got booed one time and it was Halloween. And I was like, wait, I just started talking. I was like, why are you booing me? I haven't even said nothing for it to not be funny yet. And I was like, is this like boo? Like you try to scare me? Like, because it's Halloween or what? Like, it was so bad. Like, but the thing about comedy is, man, you gotta do the time to get paid.
Yeah.
So if they start booing you at the first minute, you gotta make it to 60. You just got to keep going. So it toughens you up for sure.
But what happens in your mind specifically, like when that kind of thing happens, or it used to happen? I'm sure it probably don't happen now, but when that kind of thing happens to you, especially starting out, it can be intimidating for anybody to step on a stage. So for them to boo you, what do you think then, or put in your mind like to keep going?
Man, you just think about getting to the paycheck at that point.
Okay.
You know, I mean, the whole time I was just like, I hate these children. Like the whole time I was at the college, I was like, you know what? But then, and now it's really different because you have to think like, as much as I want to come out of my character, because my character on stage is not to be like, you know, the things I was thinking in my head to say to these children. And if you say them, somebody's going to videotape it and that's it. It's on YouTube forever. So you got to be thinking like all the things like, okay, just keep going to get the check. And then you gotta, down your emotions because you can't wild out on these children. You know what I mean? I don't want to yell at Black children, so I'm not going, I'm not going to do it anyway. But it just is a lot of things where you're just like, man, if I saw y'all in the street though,
it would be over with.
I would have some things to say to y'all. But one of my favorite things is watching comedians that I love that are really, really good. Yeah. I shouldn't say it because it sounds shitty. Ooh, I'm sorry. It sounds bad to say. But like one of my favorite, I love watching really good comics have a bad set. Okay. Because number one, it makes you feel like, oh, okay. Like it still happens to that guy. Yeah. But also just the way that people get out of it. Like they're just like, do you know who I am? Like, you're not going to ruin my career. All the things that people say, like to me, it's fun to watch somebody punish a crowd back. Yeah, you know what I mean? I'm like, I wish I was that kind of comic. I wish I could do that more. But yeah, it never feels good, but it becomes fewer and far between the longer you keep going.
Yeah. It is, like I said, it's kind of mind blowing sometimes, probably when you first get that, because I know for you as a comedian, when you step on a stage, obviously you're not expecting people to do that. You're expecting people, normally they probably might get a little quiet because they're trying to figure out who you are or what you're going to say, that kind of thing. But when they boo you, it's almost like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah.
I'd rather than be quiet. Yeah. Like if you don't like it, if something you don't like it, just be quiet. It's fine. That's much better.
Yeah. I mean, but I respect people who do go off on them too, because hey, sometimes you got to get it out. I even I remember when Tiffany had that situation in Miami Beach, I think it was, down here. And she went off on those people in the crowd like, hey, it's New Year's. I don't give a damn. Like it is what it is. But every day isn't going to be like that, thankfully. And I think that's the most important part, is that people sometimes have to realize we won't all have a great day or a great set or a great whatever the case may be, because I might have a bad day doing an interview or going outside and going to the store. It don't matter. But we have to realize that we're all human, though. That's my whole thing. Don't place so much on me that I'm not human anymore. That's my only thing with people when they go and watch comedians or singers or basketball players or whoever. You get so caught up in the art that you're not worried about the person performing the art. And it's like, I need
on the internet too. I'm like, just remember that people see things. People, people are human. They have feelings.
Exactly.
So, that's really important.
Yeah. Of course, over the years, the style of comedy has changed, or how comedy is done, it has changed tremendously based on, different situations. And for instance, like race is something that has changed over the years. Gender equality and sexuality, different things like that have changed over the years. So as a comedian, do you feel you have to change your style of comedy, as time goes on?
Not me. I don't. Again, my style of comedy is really just things that happen in my life. So there's not really a way to change that. I've never been one of those people who's going to say offensive things about a group of people anyway out loud. So it's not like I have to be like, oh, I can't say that anymore.
Right,
There's some people that are finding it challenging. You know what I mean? They're still doing it and they're getting pushback, or they don't do it and they feel bitter about it. Mm-hmm. But for me, no, I haven't had to change that much.
Okay. Now I know you got your comedy album that you put out in 2018, Grudgery, which was kind of big for you. What is the process like of making a comedy album?
Well, I mean, it's basically the same as putting together a set for TV, right? You just want to make sure that it flows. You try to find your best stuff and try to rearrange it and just kind of figure it out. You know, I'm amazed by the number of people who when I said I was doing an album, they're like, oh, so how do you record it? Like they think you're doing it in a studio. And I'm like, no, they're just recording a show. Why would you think I'm standing in a room with nobody in there? Like people like think it's like recording a record. I'm like, no, it's just they recorded the mic from the show and people were like, oh, I'm like, have you never listened to comedy records? Like, and then they start thinking back. I'm like, yeah, you never heard like a Red Fox record or like a Richard Pryor record, or they're like, oh yeah, I guess so. But for me, it took a really long time. I mean, I didn't do one till 14 years into my career. But it was the right time for me. And I did it. I did it in a way where we get a lot of airplay on radio. Hopefully, that was my goal.
Yeah.
To try to make it as palatable for all the stations. Like, all right, so I did like a squeaky clean version, and then I did a less squeaky clean version. And depending on what station it was, we sent them that album versus that album.
Right.
And so it was a long time coming, but it's worked really well.
Yeah. Are you considering doing another album anytime soon?
Well, I definitely am considering doing another album. Okay. I don't know how soon it's going to be, just because I keep writing and burning material. But I'm always working towards another album.
All right. Well, besides the album, what is next for you now? Because I know a lot of eyes are probably on you, and a lot of people are probably coming to you like, "Hey, we want you to do this."
I hope so. Come at me, y'all. Look. I'm doing a lot of writing now, so I'm looking to do more writing for TV. So hopefully that's the next step.
Yeah, I definitely see it coming. I definitely see it coming. And the last thing I want to know is, what is the greatest lesson, if you can think of one, that comedy has taught you?
Oh man. The greatest lesson that comedy has taught me. I think having comedy in my life has definitely taught me two really important lessons. The first one would probably be that if there's something like, okay, put it like this, you never know what you might be really good at, right? So if there's something itching, that you're like, that's bugging you, like, you should try that thing or whatever, and you keep going, oh, no, like, do the thing, right? Try the thing, because you never know. And the other thing is, because all you can do is regret it, right? You can't regret trying something. You can just regret not doing it, right?
That's right.
And then the other thing would be it's taught me to be okay being uncomfortable. Like discomfort is necessary to achieve your dreams, right? And whatever your dream is, right? So I just think, learning that and becoming okay with not knowing how I was going to fix it, but just having faith that I could fix it, is something that, like, I trust myself a lot more. And it's something I learned because of comedy.
That makes sense, though. I think people don't realize sometimes too that really comedians are the epitome of stepping out on faith. Because like you said, sometimes you don't know how you're going to pay the rent or, the car note or whatever the case may be, but yet you're still doing this because you love it. You're trying to get to the next gig, or you're praying somebody calls you and say, hey, I got this opportunity for you. Come over here. So that really is the epitome of stepping out on faith, because a lot of people in the world, right, will say, okay, this isn't working for me. I can't pay my bills. Okay, I gotta stop. I gotta go find me a job at Walmart, or I gotta do something that's gonna, immediately put food on my table. But you guys say, no, I love it. I'll do what I have to do. I might have to get a job at Walmart, but I'm still gonna do comedy on part-time. So I really, really respect that tremendously because it takes a lot of heart. Everybody is not cut out to do that.
Thanks,
so
yeah.
It does take a lot. But before you go, though, just let everybody know where they can find you on your social sites, websites, all that kind of stuff.
Okay. If y'all still go to websites, I'm at EJ the Comic. Oh, I'm sorry. My website is erinjackson.net. And I'm EJ the Comic on all social media. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, ladies and gentlemen, of course, this is Miss Erin Jackson. Erin, thank you so much. I enjoyed you today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. Please.